What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon coming at you today with some Rugby 24 news, some fun news to actually go over. Feels like a bit of a change since we actually get to talk about some of this stuff. We have brand new news about the game, including teams that are going to be involved with the game. We've got a bit more background information on where the game is currently at and maybe why it's been a bit quieter than a lot of people would have liked. And we've also got a bit more transparency about the development of the game. Where are we up to currently and what's going on? And all of which has come from the CEO of bigantstudios. How awesome is this? We have finally got some information to go over. So if you enjoy your Rugby 24 news, make sure you hit the old video a like and share with other people who you think will be interested in catching up with a bit of the Rugby 24 news, because I know some people sometimes miss out on some of the stuff and do tend to come to the channel just to find out what on earth is going on with Rugby 24. Now, like I said, a lot of this news is going to be coming from the mouth, or the words, or the keyboard, I should really say, of Ross Simmons. You can see him on screen here. This is the CEO of bigantstudios, and over the last 3-4 days has been really busy in terms of traveling around the UK, has been updating us on teams that are being included in the game, as well as filling us in on some new information. So we're going to have a read through of everything that's come out over the last few days and go over some of my thoughts on it. I'm going to do a quick shout out here, though, to Ross directly, because I think this is great. I don't know what's sort of gone on when it comes to Rugby 24 and bigantstudios as a whole. It really feels like this should be the job of a marketing team who, for whatever reason, whether it's they're not allowed to, or they just don't have the information, or there just really isn't a good marketing team over there to be able to share this sort of information. I'm so glad that the CEO has stepped in to basically fill the void that the entire community has been asking for a year, where basically it has just been radio silence and delays after delays, and people just want to know what is going on. So massive shout out to Ross for stepping in. I'm sure he's a very busy man being a CEO of a company and doing all the work that he's doing. I see him all the time on Twitter, always putting out what he's up to and where he's up to with games and what have you. He does get a lot of feedback that is typically kind of negative, just as the way is Twitter. He gets a lot of people complaining about games or about updates or when's this being done or when's that being done, and as opposed to just going to bigantstudios, all these FAQ pages, they seem to go directly to him. He puts it with a lot of stick. But I'm really glad to see that he's taken up this role now, where he's going to be the sort of guy who's going to start filling us in on this information, because I think that is a superb way to interact with the community. So I'm so glad to see that he is going ahead with it. So starting out then, there was a lot of questions about what is going on with Rugby 24. Why is it not out yet? Why have we had all these delays? Of course, it was meant to come out in April, the early access. We were all looking forward to it. I have now booked off 3 days off work across the release of this game. Every time it was meant to be coming out, because I want to sit down and do content on this game, and 3 work holiday days have passed and we still unfortunately have no game to play with. So Ross comes in here on the Big Ant forum page, which some of you guys might be involved with on the FAQ side. There has never been a united rugby game. There's good reason why in the past some games have had few licenses and another a few licenses. Of course, it's been very hard to amalgamate all of them into one game. We had it with Rugby 22 and Rugby Challenge 4, splitting the licenses and really sort of dividing the community a bit depending on who you wanted to play as in the game. Just in case you haven't noticed, the unions can be difficult to deal with. They are a separate set of organizations that can sometimes agree on little and have self-interest motivating them. We have managed to unite most of them, but still have to capture them whenever we are allowed do so. Our plan is to take our time and make a united game, a complete game, setting a platform for rugby games to be competitive with other sports on a global scale. It will take as long as it takes to get right. That said, a handful of nations have been really awesome to us and very patient, particularly England. They get it. So it seems like there's, of course, as we probably expected, a lot of background stuff going on, right? Behind the scenes, there is probably a hell of a lot of work that goes into capturing all these teams. As much as I'm not one that would care too much about the early access having all the photogrammetry stuff done, I personally wouldn't mind to have the character models not look perfect and experience the gameplay and let that develop. For some people, the way the game looks is like the be-all and end-all. It's like almost the most important thing. And the fact that this game has been built up so much, they want to hit the ground running. So it actually seems like we get to have a bit of a peek inside here, look past the curtain. That basically a lot of the unions are basically out for themselves, which seems kind of mad. I don't know why you wouldn't want to work well with each other. You feel like you'd want to have your team in the game. You'd want to be one of the first ones going on there. But it does sound like England are the ones to go to in terms of the way to look at how they want to try and capture these players and get them all done. Obviously, you've got a very limited time window to get as many people in as possible before team rosters change, people retire or get injured and what have you and out for the season. But it has got to be pretty difficult to put all this stuff together. This was also followed up with some people asking, you know, this was meant to come out last September. Why is this still an issue now if it was meant to come out almost a year ago? And yet again, you know, Ross dives into this. The plans were actually in place. Never ever have we had such issues with capturing the talent in a sport that we have with rugby. I never foresaw how hard it would be. We're on the right track now with the clubs and getting the internationals that way. So the international teams, of course, we know towards that end of that last year, we had the World Cup, we've had the Six Nations stuff. The international teams might be an issue, and that's going to be probably one of the biggest selling points, I'd imagine, for any rugby game. It's the most sort of top level of the game to get into. People want to play with the international teams. I would expect more than the club level teams. Even if you're a really hardcore club level supporter, a lot of people will be aiming to play with those international teams. So if the international teams are the ones letting you down, it sounds like they are basically trying to go a different route, that in order to get the international teams, and you can't sit down with the international sides, instead they're going to go to all of the club level teams, of course capturing those same players and then bring them into the international scene. So that works out. Seems like a lot more work for them rather than being able to just grab the international teams there and then. But it sounds like they have worked out a bit of an alternative, but obviously it's going to take a bit more time. We want at least 6 internationals and at least 1 or 2 competitions, plus a few women's international sides too. As an example, we captured the Wallabies and New Zealand in Melbourne 18 months ago at the Bledisloe. Most other nations stalled us and the teams went out of date, now requiring recapture. Then there was the Rugby World Cup, so they wouldn't let us capture. Then the Six Nations, etc., etc., etc. We will capture the international sides by capturing the clubs. We've never embarked on such an exercise ever for any game. So, yeah, they knew it was going to be the biggest game. They want this united game front. They are embarking on this massive thing. I mean, that right there is quite telling, right? They've already started getting a couple of the Rugby Championship sides. You know, at the Bledisloe 18 months ago, they had those teams. And, of course, they shift up from then. You know, teams starting, teams change, players even moving positions, you know, as we get round towards that World Cup and stuff. And it took so long for them to be open with them that other teams stalled them out, that their team is now beginning to change and people retiring after World Cups and stuff. It's got to be really hard to compartmentalize all these together. But this, for me, is great. I love being able to see what is going on and why it's happening. And I think a lot of people are on that as well. Sammy, of course, another YouTuber, he's involved with the Discord as well, was asking about the women's feature, because he also said about that they're going to try and get a few of the women's international sides in as well, which is fantastic. Just gives you that bit of extra, you know, reach with your audience to be able to get it on with the women's Six Nations going on as well. The 6 internationals and 2 complete competitions we'll have to talk about a little bit. If the Wallabies and New Zealand are sort of opening the door quite a lot, they've also mentioned England doing really well. I imagine that's 3 of the 6 international sides they're aiming for. When we get onto some of the Twitter feeds in a little minute as well, we'll be able to see about how many other teams are going to be capturing, what that might be, you know, sort of inclined to go for the other international sites included at the early access launch. But Sammy was asking about, you know, that there's an article out there saying it won't feature women's teams, and Ross immediately came back and said it's definitely incorrect information. Women's teams will feature in the game. There's a piece of brand new information we did not know about. It's not come out from Nacon. It's not come out from bigantstudios. Ross is dropping it on the FAQ page. This is what we like to see. He goes on to say, at the moment, we are concentrating on Premiership and URC to gain as many internationals as we can, enabling the early access to go live. That said, we have captured some national sides. So yeah, as he's mentioned, already got a couple of players already in there, but hitting the Premiership and the URC is probably going to give you most of the England team that you're going to need to anyway, and then the URC is covering your sort of Scotland, Ireland, Wales. We've got South Africa in there, Italy in there. You're looking towards maybe capturing the Six Nations as one of those 2 tournament sides going in. If they're being open in England, rugby's doing very well at working with them. The Premiership being in there, it might be that those 2 tournaments they're talking about could well be the Six Nations, and in fact be the Gallagher Premiership. That could be the other tournament that you get to see if they're opening the door more, which is great to see. A lot of other people asking some questions. There's me jumping in, just sort of saying I'm really glad to be seeing that somebody is actually jumping ahead with this and being able to get involved and give us that information that we're all asking about. They're currently on a trip, though. They are on a trip around the UK, and again, Ross said that they're doing a little bit of tennis capture for their tennis game, but the trip is 95% rugby based of what they're trying to do with the photogrammetry and capturing all of the players. With that being said, then we take over a look at Ross's actual Twitter page. Then we can see this is April 15th. This is a few days ago now from when I'm filming. They were down at the Dragons. They were capturing the Dragons players, which is nice to see. As me as a Wales supporter, I'm looking forward to do a bit of a URC tournament with some of the Welsh regions as well. They then moved on. They went to the Cardiff Stadium as well. They're sort of just down the road from me. I could have popped down. Could have got my own face in the game. Could I have Ross, reach out to me. I want my own face in the game. And then progressing on from this as well, something that again I want to give props to Ross for this, because this again feels like a fantastic move that I feel like a marketing team should be doing. Basically, what's been going on Ross's Twitter is he's actually been giving away early access codes for Rugby 24. So when the early access eventually comes around, he's giving away free codes based on wherever he is traveling to next with the team doing the photogrammetry. If you can guess correctly in his comment section where you're going, then you get a free code. That is fantastic. What a way to keep people interactive with the game and with you and wanting to talk about it. I think this is a fantastic move. So they went from Cardiff, they went up, they eventually moved to Edinburgh, so they're also capturing some of the Scotland teams. And then as of today, they've left Edinburgh, they've gone down, and I believe they're currently in, they're in Northampton today. Is where they are. They're currently at. So they are capturing teams. They're moving all over the place in the UK. I'm not really sure how difficult it was to probably plan out picking all the teams. I feel like you'd want to get all the Scottish teams done at one time, all the Wales teams done, then and move around a bit. Looks like they're not doing that. Looks like they're moving around all over the place. But this is fantastic, and I'm so glad to see that this is finally happening. It's coming late on, don't get me wrong. I feel like people would have liked to have seen this last year, but obviously, from the word of mouth of the CEO himself, there's been a lot of issues in the background, and it might well be that a lot of them are actually nothing to do with bigantstudios. If the unions don't work with them, I'm not sure how involved nacon are with being able to, actually allow that entry into places as well. It's probably going to make it more difficult. They've got teams captured from 18 months ago that are now out of date from when the game was meant to be launched. They've got to go back and recapture all them. I really like the idea that they're moving on now to capturing the club level teams. If they get all the club level teams done, you can filter in. You can go on to take over some of those international teams using those players. And the fact we get to see this every day, I think is a real positive. And seems to be received, pretty well by the community, which is nice to see. But now this was a comment that I did see the other day that I thought brought up an interesting question. Again, the answer from Ross was really interesting. Talking about if you could add in other rugby premiership sides like the Welsh sides that are going to be a little bit lower down in sort of the tables and stuff. Teams like Aberavon and Pontypridd, is... I think a big ask to fit in a game that's already sounding, pretty big anyway. And he came back and said, perhaps one day we've got a number of leagues, but do not go as deep as that next level, which I think is fair. That is a massive ask. I'm sure, games like FIFA go into lower and lower leagues. But I think for this being, the first big game for Rugby from Big, and I think that's fair. But this was the bit that really got me. We do have all of our renowned URC tools for players' stadium creation, though. So you will get all you need from the community in the meantime. So it really sounds like they have pushed this community building tool that is going to allow you to do players, hopefully to a pretty high level in the stadium creation, so we can add players as well. I'm really looking forward to see what those are going to be. I would really love to see just some clips of what that looked like, what we could expect. What does the stadium creator look like? What can you do with the players? What sort of options are we going to get? But the idea that we could go away and create our own teams, I think, again, is such a fantastic way to get around licenses. Again, if you have a great creation tool, the community is vocal and active enough that they will go out of their way. I am one of them who will go and create players, who will create stadiums, who will do all these awesome things. So the fact that they are backing themselves here yet again, I think is a really, really fantastic, thing. So we've also now got the women's leagues coming in. Hopefully we'll find out a bit more information about that because that, opens up another avenue. And the fact that now every day we get to look forward to where are they at? Will someone get a free code when it gets around to early access? I think all of this is fantastic, and I do appreciate the work that's going into making this game. The fact that they haven't conceded and just shoveled out a game that's going to be utterly broken. They are sticking to their guns. They are holding this game back until it is perfect and ready to go, even if that is annoying everyone because people just want to see some gameplay and they do want to play through it. I will maintain again, I think this is something that should be being done by a marketing team. I think Ross has done this really well, though, to be able to sort of go out of his way, and he's involved with the capture teams. He's traveling the UK. Unfortunately, he's not, putting it out as an official post on the actual Rugby 24 page or anything. It's all on his own page. So if you guys are not following Ross himself, unfortunately, you will just be seeing the endless disappointment tweets of we're delayed and we're delayed again. So unfortunately we'll be missing out on that. But if you want to get involved with all the latest news, remember you can hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. I'll always try and cover as much as I can find about the game, or we also have the Discord channel, which will also be in the description of this video, where we have 300 plus people who are just like you, who love talking about rugby gaming stuff, and who find out this information more often than not quicker than me, because we have some real hardcore enthusiasts on this. But hopefully you've all enjoyed this update today, guys. Sorry I've rambled on a little bit long, but I enjoy getting into this, and it's so nice to be able to think that we're actually going to be able to talk about this maybe a little bit more, maybe doing some streams and covering what news has come out. I'm all about this. I'm still really looking forward to this game. I don't think the launch has been as fantastic as anyone would have wanted, but it's nice to hear that there are bigger issues behind the scenes that are not under Big Ant's control, and is maybe actually some of the rugby union sides letting them down a bit, which is annoying as a rugby fan and a rugby gaming fan. I would like them to work very closely with them to have this thing sorted out. They all have their own interests. They've all got their own money. They all want training time. They can't separate players. I do kind of understand it, but selfishly, from a gaming standpoint, I want to get this game out. I want to play it. I want to make videos on it. I want to do all that fun stuff. But hopefully you will enjoy this one today, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.